Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Analytics Mindset. We are going to go into programming basics again. So if you haven't seen my other video, Absolute Programming Basics for Beginners, and you feel that you're going to be a little bit lost, please go to that video. It's going to be somewhere in the screen. And without further ado, we're going to go into reading and writing X files in Python. Let's start with some little context here. Why do we need to import stuff on Python, first of all? Well, I have a scenario ready. I have this CSV called messy office data that I'm going to open to show how it looks like. And as you can see here, this data is very messy. We have our office, our ratings, and the number of employees. Let's just assume that you are in an HR department, for example, and you're collecting data on your employees. It was a survey, rate your office, as easy as that. Let's notice a little bit of inconsistencies in this data. If you want to try it yourself, pause the video for a little bit and try to find by yourself what errors might be in this data. But without further ado, if you did that already, coming into this, you will notice that Detroit is not capitalized. That is not a big deal. But let's say you have a dimension table and you're going to bring that table later on and join it with this data. Obviously, if your dimension table is anything standard, it will be capitalized. And yes, you could do some cleaning there, but relatively speaking, it's just easier to do that cleaning before we put that into the join condition. It's just easier to work with clean data before it hits our data pipelines. It's just a good practice as well. The other thing that we have is, as you can see here, we have Austin and Dustin. This, we will assume that it's just a data error. It's supposed to be on the Austin, and somebody just misspelled there for whatever reason. It just happened. It happens all the time. It's human error. So again, that's not a big deal, but we will assume that we know that and we know why it happened. That's all what we're going to assume on. With that being said, we're going to go back into Python. We are not going to save the changes to the CSV. Now, we need two specific libraries for this. We are going to need Pandas and Numpy. We're going to need to import those two. There, you can import it as you want. My standard convention is Pandas as PD, Numpy as MP. That's just my standard convention. You could name them whatever you want. Just remember that later on, if you see PD, it's Pandas. If you see MP, it's Numpy. We will start by importing them. Take this. And you may ask me, okay, we have the messy data, but hey, I can fix it in Excel, right? Yeah, you will need to do that every single time you have a messy data set. Again, let's just assume that somebody gave you this and it's like, fix it for me, please, and give it back to me by the end of the day. You absolutely could do it in Excel, right? As a CSV. You could just delete that row with with the wrong value, add the number of employees to Austin, and correct Detroit. The magic of automation, though, is that the script that we are going to create here can do it for you. It will create an automated way, and you will schedule it somehow. If you are in a very small company, small to medium company, you most likely schedule it in a Windows server, probably, or in a Windows computer, and create a task through Task Manager, for example. That's one of the most basic ways I have seen to schedule it. If your company is bigger, you might have way more sophisticated schedulers like Airflow, for example, or even Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, that you can just create Python files there. Usually they're IPython files, same syntax as Jupyter Notebook /lab if you have used it. But the point is the same. You will create a script that has certain number of steps that you can perform every single time, and you don't need to do it over again every single time. It's just a one-time thing, and then you can do it by yourself. Notice how we are going to create here. Well, we are not creating it, but we are putting into the console pd.readCSV. That is the core syntax for pandas. After that, we are going to take that specific path. In my case, you have seen, the only thing I did is taking the path here. So if I go here to properties, and then I go to security, you can see where I get my path. You may have a more complex path. I put it in C, videos, data. There is a lot you could put in documents. You could put it anywhere you want. I'm going to execute this. You can see that I just have data. It is there. I read what is in that CSV, but I can't interact with it. There is no variable here. That is because we need to actually assign it to a variable. PD read CSV will always output it. And you could just put this instead of the variable, but that's why we have variables. Variables just make our life easier. You store that data frame in the variable and you can use it to do whatever you want. So we're going to store it in a variable called messy data. And as you can see here, now I can play with it. I have this data frame here and it exists in my computer. Python recognizes it as an object that I can interact with. That's a pandas data frame, by the way, if you were interested in it. Pandas reads the CSV and does a lot of assumptions with it. You can see how office, rate, and employees are the column titles. That is an automated process on pandas. You could modify it if you wanted to. So just for a second, we're going to put PD read CSV. As you can see here, you have a lot of arguments. I just use the default because that's the most useful most of the time. But you could see here, there is the file path that you want, or buffer. There's ways to do it with buffers. What's your separation? What's your delimiter? Your headers infer, and that's how pandas got those headers, the first column. One the names, what's the index column? None in this case, etc., etc., etc. You can see there is a lot of stuff you can do here. You can declare a lot of stuff here, and it really depends up to you how you do it. But I just went to the default Panda setup because I trust it and I have used it multiple times. And in this case, it's correct for this data frame. Importing data into Python also allows us to just use every single tool in Python that we have. There is stuff that you can code into Python to do things that macros might be able to do, but it will take way more code to maintain, or automation, as I said before. Python is a very robust language. There is programming language. There is a lot of stuff you can do there. So you can do whatever you want pretty much. That's one of the main reasons why we want to import data to Python. You could do it in other ways. You can argue that if we had a database, we might be able to just do this into a scheduled query. And that's an awfully good concern. It could happen. It's just another kind of tool that you can use in your toolkit in case you need. Python just has a ton of different methods and different packages. You could run machine learning models with sklearn, for example. You could do distributed computing. You could do PyTorch stuff. You could do PySpark to process very big amounts of big data, for example. There is a lot of possibilities. This importing just allows you, and exporting, that we will see later on at the end, allows you to use all the power of Python and all these different tools with your data. Now, again, the main benefit of this is that we can apply the corrections running this script, and I will show you that later on. And we already noticed what is incorrect. We know that Austin is supposed to be the merge of these two, and Detroit is supposed to be capitalized. So we need to correct those two things. We can start with Detroit. Detroit should be capitalized. So we're going to take, there is a lot of ways, by the way, to do this. You might know it from a different way, but that's the easier way that I prefer. Messy data office, this is the column that we want to correct. This is the new value, by the way. It's going to be equal to the old value, messy data office, str, that's going to take the strings out of that column title. So we can run step by step, and we can run this first. You can see here, it's slicing the data frame and giving me just those cities there. That's all that is doing. And now we are going to include str2 because why not? You can see here accessor string methods here. That doesn't really give us a lot of insights, but it's basically taking the strings from there. And now we apply title. What title does is just making it as a title. If there is two words, like in San Francisco, you can see, it still keeps those two words. There is no need for you to correct anything. Detroit has been corrected, and New York is still capitalized as it should be. So that's a very easy way. If you are more into a computer science background, you may have learned how to actually code this from scratch. That's the way. But I mean, Python has so many built-in models and so many built-in functions that it's just easier. For 90% of the programmers, I would argue, 95%, it would just be easier to call this instead of programming yourself. If this is before a space, if it is after a space, and it's the first letter of the word, capitalize it. That you could do that. You could code that very easily to some degree. Easily is a relative term here. You could code your own function if you wanted to. But again, it's just easier, and it allows you to just do it without knowing what's behind it. And then we will just print this messy data. So we're going to bring it again. As you can see, I have my whole data set here. And whenever I run this, and then I print it, Detroit is fixed. Now let's look at Austin and Dustin. So we have a little bit of options here. The employees, we're going to assume it was a survey, so some of them, yes, 20 of them, put Dustin because they put the A incorrectly. Let's say they were in more fonts, and it happens. The rating, though, we're just going to assume that we could average them out. That's an option. But let's just say that we are going to assume that we don't want those four 20 for those 4 ratings for 20 employees. We will just get rid of them because why not? Now, there is again a lot of ways you can do this. First of all, for me at least, I'm going to take messy data, use log. This is going to identify where that data is. And we're going to say when messy data office is equal to Dustin and the office column, make it Austin. That's how this is read. If you're more familiar with databases, this might remind you to the word clause, and that's exactly where it is. This is saying only locate where office is equal to Dustin, nowhere else, because if not, you will be changing everything. Now we're going to look at messy data again. And now you can see there, we have Austin in both records. That is a hardcode value, hard-coded. You actually put it there as a value that says, whatever this is all Dustin, change it to Austin. We could have done something more complicated, like a regular expression, for example. We are just not going to cover that here in this specific video. That belongs more into an NLP session or a more advanced data manipulation video. I'm just going to keep it simple here. We just located where it says Dustin and assigned it to Austin. We're making an inference there. And we're going to do something very similar here. We're going to take the minimum rating, and we are also going to take the sum of employees. Notice here how we are saying here office as index false, because if not group by will make this the index. Python loves indexes, but I have my indexes here. I don't want to use office as my index. And we're going to look at this new clean data frame that I create. You can see here, I have my offices. Austin is here with a rating of 150 employees. That is basically what we wanted there. Now, after that, we're going to look at the data types because we can. You will notice here that office is an object. We are going to change that, even though it's not going to change anything, as you will see later on, because strings can have variable length. So it's Python's way to tell you this string could be any length. I don't know what to do with it. I would change it to string, but data types is still going to tell you this is an object. That is more or less the deal with it. Now we have ensured at least that the data is a string. So if there is anything that is not a string or doesn't look like a string, then that will be corrected. That is the main purpose of this. And then finally, we will assume that the ratings can be decimals. You may notice here that it says int 64. that it comes by integer 64. We are putting this as you can only be a value, a discrete value, if you are more into the math background. You cannot be continuous. We want it to be continuous. We want it to have decimals because let's just say somebody forgot in the survey to the decimal points. Yes, rounded it out. But next time when we want to do something, we want them to have decimals. It's as easy as doing clean data, rating, as type float. Float is going to be the data type that we want to use. It's going to be decimal here. And now we are just going to take clean data again. And as you can see, now it has zeros. That's the way that Python tells you, I did what you told me, but we can triple check ourselves with D types. Now you see that rating is a float 64, while employees is an int 64. It's correct as we want to because we cannot have decimal employees unless you do part-timers maybe. We will just assume that everybody's full-time in this company because they don't have that many employees anyway. And now we are going to do all the transformations. We already did that. We will go ahead and write this. There is another way you could do it. If we wanted to just put it as a CSV, that is perfectly possible and reasonable. I will do something like I did here of PD read CSV, PD write CSV. There is a way to do that. I don't want it though. I want it to be an Excel file because Excel files can store that data type. Excel files are just way more complex than CSVs. You may see them as the same from a Excel perspective. In the background, they are awfully different. And Excel files just allow you more complexity. Microsoft proprietary most of the time, though, unfortunately, that's a trade-off that you will do. I will assume that my boss in this case just wanted as Excel. They didn't want a CSV, they prefer an Excel for whatever reason. I will do clean data to Excel. That is already a method that Python has, more specifically NumPy, Pandas, my bad, with the data frame that if you put the path that you want to write it, it will write it for you. And then we will just print a final print message saying script executed successfully. I'm going to open this. And as you can see, I have a new clean office data. I'm going to open this clean office data so you can see. And it is as we wanted to. You can see here Austin, Denver, Detroit, LA, New York, and San Francisco, the correct ratings, and the number of employees. Austin has 150, just as we wanted. Now, you may want to say, but you needed to go through all of that. That was horrible. I needed to execute every single line of code. Not quite. I have all my code now here. Let's say I made a mistake and I deleted this file, but I still have my original data. Guess what? All this time, I have always, in Python at least, in my videos, given you a step-by-step guide. I have always been executing line by line. However, you don't need to do that. There is a very nice way where you can just run the full file without needing to do all the stuff that I needed. I'm going to do that. You can see here, it runs the file that doesn't have a title right now, and it just runs everything. It's doing everything I needed, and it's printing at the end scripts executed successfully. What just happened? I executed the whole script. Everything that I had here has been executed in the order that I wanted, starting with the messy office data CSV. If I come back here, my clean office data is there, and I didn't need to do anything else. The file reappeared because I have gone and executed the whole script from beginning to end without the need of doing anything else. And that is the magic of automation. You can do so much more. This is a very simple example, but you could do so much more. Python has connections to emails. You could automate emails. You could automate ETL pipelines, connections to databases. Possibilities are very, very big. There is a lot of more that you can do. You could execute your own app. That's possible. Yeah, there is a lot of possibilities. You can think more about them in your free time. But with that being said, I hope you found this useful. And with that, I will finish this video saying that Thank you. If you have taken the time to see this, any likes, any comments, positive or negative, any feedback that you may have for me to improve presenting these videos would be good for me. So please feel free to just provide it to me. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day.